just entered the bear crawling nation on the No Agenda Stream.
This is Rhonni DuBose, and welcome to the other side of live.
And tonight, getting to run the phone call. Finally, I get my shot. I get my shot at the big time. I'm your host, the McFall, and special call-in guest with me tonight. We buried the Mordant. He's gone. We fired him. He couldn't hold up his internet contract. But we have in the phone line studio none other than Rhonnirocks.
Hey there.
How are you doing this evening, Miss Rhonni?
I'm doing great.
And just because it would not be the other side of live, we do have also in the phone studio on the road tonight none other than our Mordant Mod, who you've all turned out to talk to and listen to. Yay!
Oh, hello, everybody. I am sitting here in my truck in Pecos, Texas, just off of I-20 heading eastward, but I'm sitting here at a Flying J with, Yep, that's what's happening for me. I hope you're having a good time doing what you're doing. I've got driving ahead of me.
So would you say you're homeward bound?
I'm homeward bound. I'm stabbing eastward. I am there and back again, in other cliche terms of traveling.
Well, we lined up Rhonni this evening because we did not know how your signal would go. We did not know how well things would hold up on your end. So let's get into it. Last year, we started doing the other side live. 2 years ago. Okay, 2 years ago, you started Mordant World Radio, where you did an interview, and your first, well, I guess technically second, but I don't count because I was just showing you the ropes. So your first real interview was with Rhonnirocks.
Really? I
Yep.
didn't know that. You seem so professional.
And he does have a hard time hearing sometimes with the phone line as it is. So if he misses something, it's just because there's a connection issue.
Oh, also, I had people walking up to the truck kind of looking at me weird. Rhonni was the first person that I believe, well, after my inaugural show with you in the Bears Den, when we did Mordant World Radio, Rhonni was the first interview, her and Kelly Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
And she was my very first vlog, and I think she was on the very first live show.
Yeah, Rhonni, I was about to get to that. So last year, you decided to go live, and right around January, we started doing live shows, maybe a little before that. I don't remember exactly when you started doing live shows. And Rhonni was in for the first couple, and I was talking to her earlier this evening. I said, well, this is a great catch-up. We're still early into the year, and the Renfest is just getting kicked off here in Georgia, and she's got a booth here. That's how I've known and met her. And so, we got a lot to catch up on in the year. So you're looking forward, first off, let's get you started with what's going on now. You're looking forward to this season of Renaissance festivals throughout the nation?
Yes, I have this luxury of I live in 4 different places a year, and it's one of the things that I really love about this. But there's the love and hate of I have a different neighborhood and a different community that I interact with at every show. So my neighbors are not the same in the spring as they are in the summer. So it's kind of like I move to a whole new place over and over again, but then I already know the neighbors. So it's difficult to find a correlation for somebody. Maybe it's like going to school and seeing your school friends and then going away for summer and seeing your summer friends. But I have favorite things about every place that I live. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I got to spend the winter in a nice little beach town where my husband and I just bought a house. And it's lovely, but I got to pay for it. So I got to travel away from it.
Right. I believe we lost Mordant, and he came back in.
I'm back. I hit the wrong button and my phone went bad.
I was just thinking, you were saying somebody was walking up to your truck. You should have gotten a nice strip of paper and then red crown written on air and just stuck it in your window for when people walk by.
Yeah. Then they would come in and ask me what this meant. And then also we'd have not call-ins, but walk-ups.
There you go. Walk-ups. That's a whole new wave of podcasting that nobody's taken on yet. Walk-ups.
That's right. More man of the street. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So now
our drawback to being on the side of the road and take us Texas.
So, is this your dream? We talk about chasing and catching your dream here on the other side of live a lot. We talk about things to get off your butt and get people motivated. But was this always your dream growing up, where you're like, I want to be a chef and I want to travel around the nation full time and be a Rhonni, or how did this fall into place for you?
Well, even when I was in high school, I could tell you when every traveling art show was scheduled for the entire summer in New York. I mean, not in New York, in Oklahoma, where I was at high school and where I went to college. I went to every traveling art show that happened. And Oklahoma City actually has a couple of very good, highly juried art shows. Festival of the Arts is there. The Norman Medieval Fair happens there. It's only one weekend, but it's the first festival of the season, which means that if the weather's decent at all, there's 50,000 people in a day in a city park there in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where the University of Oklahoma is located. So I had always been interested. I kept myself surrounded with artists, and I always felt more connected to these people that were traveling than to the people that I knew that didn't ever plan to leave Oklahoma. So it's one of those things that sometimes in your life you can look back and say, oh, I remember setting this up. On subconscious level, you set yourself up to be the person that had more than one kitchen to play in because you said that one time or found yourself saying that more than once as a child.
So you believe that we set ourselves up to succeed or to fail based on what we think about ourselves or how we see the world?
Absolutely. Now, and it's interesting to me to see where my life has come full circle and things that I didn't necessarily think I gave a lot of import to. I studied sustainable agriculture. That was what I wanted to major in college, was ecologically sustainable agriculture. That would have been in 1984, when that was not yet a program at the university level, with the exception of 2 universities in the country, neither of which I could afford because they were both on the West Coast. But 25, 30 years later, I'm a member of a club with the 8 guys at the USDA who happen to be the only team studying sustainable agriculture. Their research center happens to be 8 miles from my organic citrus and avocado grove near the Mexican border. And we have lunch once a month.
Nice.
When I'm there. And that's one of those things where you go, oh, I set this up. I remember saying, I want to be active with people that are doing something in this, and yet I don't like arguing, so I don't want to be the person trying to push the agenda change, but I still want to be supportive, and I still want to be able to lend my energy and lend my ideas. And lo and behold, when I'm 40 years old, I find myself sitting with these goofy but wonderful scientists that forced the USDA to allow them to have a team studying sustainability.
That's really cool. Is that something Go ahead, Morton.
I was going to say, last week we talked about, in episode 39, discovering Plan B, when everything goes horribly awry, and then you have to let go of your plan, and you're changing it into something else. And obviously I'm in the midst of all that still. However, Charles and I talked about a couple of different, show themes for the night, and one of the things discussed, he has another one as well that I thought was equally as good, and I hope he brings it up. But this one was Make It Happen. And it seems like that you have done that throughout your life. And maybe it didn't go the direction you thought it would, but eventually you got back to exactly where you wanted to be, influencing sustainable agriculture. And I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes, you are.
But all along the way, all along the way, in each of your things, you're like the poster girl you're the pinup girl for entrepreneurialism. You're always making things happen. You're always having these ideas and then pushing forward, not just staying in the thinky stage. So I think
Right.
you've done that throughout your whole life. I think you did it with this and instigated the fact that you're now in the midst of these men and able to have a voice in the very thing that you wanted to become a part of, while still having a life doing other stuff.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting. They think that it's far out that I can afford to dabble in agriculture because I have businesses at theme parks around the country. You know, they think it's wacky and wonderful.
What do you think?
Oh, I think it's wacky. No, it's wacky and wonderful, actually. I know this to be true.
So how many businesses do you yourself run? 'Cause I know your husband has some that he runs without you, but how many do you have yourself?
I have hair braiding and henna services at 2 theme parks. But then I also do all of the paperwork and personnel work for food businesses, even the ones, say, my husband's doing a show. He's doing a show on the beach in Port Aransas, Texas. It's going to open Friday. That show is Sandfest. It's one of the first qualifiers of the International Sand Sculpting Competition, and we're going to sell chocolate on the beach with a solar-powered and wind-powered operation. 3 days on the beach. No one else has electricity. Every other food vendor is going to have to spend $2,000 on diesel fuel to keep their generators running. And how appetizing is that, having a diesel generator next
Right.
to your food setup? But I'll run the Craigslist ad to hire his people. I pulled the health permit from where I am so that he'll have it all. You know, I make sure. So while he's out there doing those shows, I'm the support for all of that. Then together we have food operations at 2 larger Renaissance festivals than the one in Georgia. That would be the New York Renaissance Fair, which is in Tuxedo, New York, about 40 miles outside of Manhattan. And then we have 4 restaurants inside the Texas Renaissance Festival, and that show is the largest Renaissance festival in America. Last year we got 491,000 people in 19 days.
Holy cow.
Yeah. At the New York show, we have 9 locations. I would still call it one food operation, but I
Right.
have 9 locations at that show.
That's a lot. Now, I've been sad to see some of your cooking on the YouTube and to hear of the wonderfulness of it, and then go, oh, Rhonni's coming back to town. This is last year, and you're like, nope, don't do food in Georgia. I'm like, no, why? You broke my heart.
Well, she does hair braiding, though, so your hair's growing out. You could probably use her in that fashion.
It's
There we go.
Not the same. Not the same. Oh, man.
Well, the truth is that on show days, I do tend to throw together something for dinner on the back porch. And if I do say so myself, it's probably better than any food you get at this festival.
That's,
It is very good and very good for you.
and
But I keep threatening to bring hot dogs and throw it into the mix.
I was going to tell you, you should just buy a pound of bacon and keep it in this kitchen so that when there's not enough meat at dinner, you can just microwave some bacon and put it on top.
You know, as long as there's protein and it all tastes good, who cares? I mean, I had Chef Jack's fix some kind of vegan appetizer. I don't remember, some kind of mushroom cracker thing, and it was amazing. It was good. I was like, and here I thought vegan was all about horribleness.
Right. Well, there are a lot of people that think that a limited list of the foods you eat means a limited flavor profile, and that's not true. If you're dealing with somebody that really knows their way around food, and of course Chef Jack's is definitely one of those people, then your food's going to be flavorful she can make something with 3 healthy ingredients that's going to be so delicious you can't stop eating it.
Right. But now, how is that mentality that you obviously have about food, about health, about the way you treat people in life, how has that furthered your business? I mean, you just talked about not being limited in your thought process on food. How has that opened up doors for you? Because obviously you didn't start with all these businesses. You didn't start in all these festivals. I'm sure you probably started really small somewhere, and you forced your way through it. How did you make it happen, as our Mon Mon say?
Well, I don't know if you've met my husband. He's kind of known for tossing out Texas truisms on a fairly regular basis. But one of the things he says is, there is one thing that there's always a shortage of that you can sell to any extent that you could come up with it, and that is the desire and the willingness to work hard. And so my first jobs were managing, well, heck, my first jobs were just working for somebody in the food business. Then I showed up on their radar as somebody that did a good job. In fact, I'm known for the way that I've built my business mostly is I just get caught doing a great job. Not because I want to get caught. That's why I say get caught instead of make sure you're seen doing a good job. If you get caught doing a great job, then people will throw more jobs at you or offer you more positions, even if it's something that you may not have ever done before, because they know that you apply yourself at a level that they want to see with this new project. So your name comes up as a person that works hard, as a person that presents well, as a person that is honest.
Yeah.
But my first jobs, I was just working for a food guy. I did everything from selling Italian ices from a cart in the middle of a giant field, blasting sun in Dallas, Texas, to selling pretzels on a stick, walking with a stick full of 120 pretzels, which weighs about 65 pounds, up the side of a mountain at the Colorado Renaissance Festival, and that was straight commission. You get a quarter for every pretzel you sell. So by the end of the show, I had really great legs. I was working my ass off. But then I ended up, they needed a trusted person to run a shop. I happened to grow up in restaurants, so the very first show I ran, I doubled the all-time gross for the shop that I had been running. I had doubled the all-time record for income for that building. And from that point, I was in middle management for a guy that did food at 7 Renaissance festivals and the largest outdoor venue in America, which is the Minnesota State Fair. For 7 years, I managed for him, and my husband Phil and I both did. We did all of this guy's construction, building all of his kitchens, and then managed his shows. So basically, I was able to learn the Renaissance Festival food business on somebody else's nickel.
Nice.
Then, honestly, my first food booth, I traded labor for. There was thousands of dollars that I did not have, and I said, okay, I will open your 7 shops, which is something I've done for 7 years, and you won't have to pay any of the labor or buy any materials, and I'll do that for 3 years. And I traded that labor for buying my first food booth.
Nice. So
yeah, and then from there, actually, I mean, my biggest investment, my biggest money-making business was offered to me because of the excellent job I did someplace else. I had opened a restaurant. Other people had seen it. So when the bakery at the Texas Renaissance Festival came available, the owner told the people selling it, come up with a payment system that Rhonni can make work because she's going to own that booth.
Nice.
And they did.
Very, very cool. So what was What was your dream in all of this? It's all about food. It's kind of just you focused on doing a great job and just following where life took you. Was your dream still just to be around agriculture?
No.
What was your dream?
I've always been. Well, let's see. I can probably come around to it by explaining to you who I like to hire to work for me, because I like to hire people who are wired the same way I am. And by looking at them, I can see it in myself. And what I like to hire is people who are emotionally fed by providing something to other people. They're emotionally fed by feeding people in my food shops. They're emotionally fed by making people feel beautiful in a hair braiding shop. They're emotionally fed by creating original artwork on people in my henna shops. So I'm fed by making people happy. And sometimes I do that with food, and sometimes I do that by being a calming influence when their life is falling apart, and sometimes I do that by telling them about a great book that I just read, that I just got this idea that they needed to know about it.
So you're always looking for places to meet the need.
Yes, I think that's it. That's a good way to put it.
I think that's our Morning Mon in that show. He's always talking about how there was some catchphrase you came up with recently about how can I make you awesome, or something. What was it? Our Morning Mon.
Help others be awesome.
Help others be awesome.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah. So if you'd like to call in, you've got questions, you want encouragement. You hear the male voices all the time, and we give you encouragement, but it is different hearing it from a different perspective. You want the female perspective? Call in now, 813-413-7133. And if this is not Tuesday night when you're listening, it's been pre-recorded, please ignore. But it's Tuesday night. We're live, no agenda stream, in the chat room. We've got people listening. 813-413-7133. Now, I heard that phrase, get caught doing a great job. And I know our Morning Mon has something to say about that.
I think that Rhonni has turned that into that. I think it's her secret ingredient. I was going to ask, how do you, what did you use to get you where you are? I think this is the thing for her that has really brought her to she's been able to parlay all these other businesses by being very good at what she does in all of these situations. Now, I also realize that Rhonni is not just these few businesses she's talking about. She's kind of a collector as well, because she owns all these domain names.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You are the most owningest of domain names person I know.
Well, I buy a domain name every time I have a business idea.
Right.
I mean, and so I think I looked at it today, and I think I have 827 domain names.
Wow.
How do you afford to renew those? Oh, my God.
My life is good. Now, I have sold a domain name, and so I will say that after you sell your first domain name, suddenly it's okay to go buy a domain name when you get a great idea, because somebody might come pay you $1,800 for alkalinelifestyle.com.
I remember
wow.
that you had we were out at the festival and you had just sold it like that week, and I got to tell everybody listening, when you see somebody like Rhonni who's obviously positive and very helping other people, as she comes out and she just talks about how she sold her first domain name, and you would think she cured cancer. It's a good thing. She's just excited, and that's in the embodiment of chasing your dreams. I mean, your dream is not to own and sell domain names, and yet you do it, and you enjoyed it, and you lived it to the fullest, and that's really cool.
And not only have you done it that way, but you've actually turned these into businesses. You've gone from just the idea stage, well, that's a great idea, and you've gone ahead and made it happen. And I think that ties in as well with your just being caught doing an excellent job. So you're very good at many of these things. You're very good at businesswoman. So I think that a lot of people listening, but especially a lot of women listening, could learn a lot from how you've done things as a woman as a businesswoman in this world, and been successful at it. So how did you make the transition? What is your secret behind going from idea to actually pulling the trigger and making it a successful business? Because many of us have the idea, but not many people will turn that around and actually make it happen.
Well, I'll tell you something I learned doing construction. When I was designing buildings for the people who were we were building food businesses for them at parks, and I had to make every one look different. And sometimes they'd go, oh, I don't know. Well, I can fix any bad decision except for indecision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I can make another decision. I can change anything that's wrong. It might not be as great to redo it a different way, but it's still better than having not done anything. So with this group of people, it was a partnership of 3 guys. We got to where we had an idea of what they wanted. We would get started and then let them come in and say, oh, well, yeah, the window should go over here. But I'd already have the floor down and already have the walls being stood up, and decide on the colors so that they had less decisions to make because they tended to want to have a committee meeting. That's the other thing. I don't have a committee. I have a partnership with my husband, and we own businesses together, but we definitely have a division of labor. And
right.
I have final say on anything related to paper, and he has final say on anything that relates to engineering, because he's been a builder and designer longer, and I've been dealing with paperwork and managing HR longer. We still sit and make decisions together, but we never have to flip a coin to decide. One of us, we're always in the department where one of us has more clout, I would say.
Right.
Now, how long?
So you don't get hung up. You don't get hung up on well, wait, maybe we should do this, or maybe this is going to work, or just kind of let's what is it? Analysis paralysis.
Not usually.
You don't get hung up on that.
There are some things where we change our minds a few times. For example, this week I have to turn in my contract for my summer show with a complete list of every food that I want to sell and exactly what price I want to charge for it, and what I'm going to call it on my sign, which has to sound like a Renaissance something. Even though it's a spinach quesadilla, I have to make it sound like something Renaissance. We've been playing with this idea and actually dramatically changing our menu over the last 3 months. Oh, maybe we'll drop soup in a bread bowl. Let's definitely drop soup in a bread bowl. And then the next day when it's cold and we remember how good soup in a bread bowl sells when it's cold, we think, oh, well, we can do that all winter long until I get the contract application in the mail, at which point we go with whatever our most recent decision was.
Right.
Because we have a deadline then. As long as we don't have that deadline, it's really easy to get into the analysis paralysis. In fact, I've learned to use that dead time, that dead air, for say, I'm waiting for the festival management to come back from winter vacation, whereas Phil might go, I have a great idea. I'm going to call New York, and we're going to talk about this. What do you think? Do you think they'll let me add sausage on a stick? Which maybe they will, maybe they won't. But don't call them right now because we might actually want to ask for 3 things, and we don't want to call them 3 times. So we play that little game and enjoy the back and forth. But now, this week, when I have 3 days to get that contract back, we'll just do it. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. I'll have one item wrong or something, or I'll say, well, we came up with a better name. But we're pretty good at not getting stuck.
Right.
We get bored very easily. We need projects to stay sane.
Speaking of projects, I know that, although you've been doing this kind of thing all your life, I know that you have other irons in the fire. I know that right now you have a super secret ninja project that we can barely touch on. But my question is, if you're somebody who is, whether you're used to doing business things like this or not, what advice do you have for somebody to make that leap? First of all, are you still afraid with new things? Do you find yourself dragging your feet at all like normal mortals do? And then how do you get beyond that? And what advice do you have for them to get beyond that to make it happen?
Well, there's the timer trick. If you really force yourself to spend, this is one of the things that works for me, and partially because I have so many other things that I'm working on, it's easy if something scares me a little for me to say, well, I'm too busy with this other thing that I have to get done. But if I have a kitchen timer on my desk, and I say, okay, I'm going to give 15 minutes solid to my new project, and set a kitchen timer. And I can't check Facebook. I can't look at Twitter. I can't look at texts. I can only work on the new project. You get huge amounts of things done when you do that.
Yeah.
Just 15 minutes. What's 15 minutes? It's nothing. But it's 15 minutes focused. And you say, if I give 15 minutes to this, then I can go do whatever I want. Or then I can get back to this other thing. But I know that I'll beat myself up if I haven't given some attention to this thing that scares me a little.
Right. And everybody can throw in 15 minutes.
Right. I mean, I don't watch television, but it's a quarter of a TV show. Maybe it's half of a TV show if you're watching a half-hour sitcom.
Right. And that seems to get you motivated to get everything done that you want done?
Well, a wise friend once asked me when I was beating myself up about not getting my to-do list done that it's quite possible that I put more on my must-get-done today list than any human being could accomplish in a day. So I do give myself some forgiveness when I don't get the whole list done. But the timer thing is really a great little tool. Heck, you could do, I'm going to vacuum my floor for 5 minutes. Set a timer because you keep needing to get to that thing. And you haven't done it. Now there's a dust bunny the size of your fist underneath your desk.
Get our Mordant Mon to come to your house. He does well with vacuuming.
Yeah, I'm a vacuumer from way back.
It was a new challenge for me. I bought new rugs for a house. My whole house got like a new wool rug in every room, and I didn't have dust bunnies this winter. I had dust buffaloes. It's like, oh, how did this happen?
Wow. So how long have you been married to Phil?
Phil and I lived together. We lived in sin for 12 years, and now we've been married for 10.
So 22 years you've been together.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Would you ever pick a different business partner?
No. Well, I say that. My super secret ninja project is actually partnering with my best friend, who happens to be a brilliant trademark lawyer out of California.
But what I'm getting at...
But that's my best girlfriend.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. What I'm getting is well, let me ask you this. When has the business interfered with the marriage, and when has the marriage interfered with the business?
The only time that business interfered with the marriage was, well, we weren't married yet, but when I first went on the road, he was quite established as a carpenter, and I was a carpenter's helper until I got really proficient at design and taught myself how to use a CAD program so that I could pull permits, and studied up on the building codes so that I was fluent in building codes in 3 different regions. And so while I was a laborer learning my way around construction, there would be some push-pull, because when do you stop being boss?
Right.
You know, when you go home, you don't want to have the dynamic of boss and employee anymore. So that's difficult, and that's why we don't have that dynamic anymore. We're 2 bosses of different divisions.
Okay.
And I strongly recommend that to anybody. I found that very difficult to figure out when the hierarchy shifted away. I mean, even if you just have to make up some section that's yours. Oh, well, I'm going to only do all of the odd-numbered jobs. On the odd-numbered jobs, I'm in charge, and on the even-numbered jobs, you're in charge. Just something. Or I guess you could say, at 3:30, there's no more boss. We cannot talk about work after 3:30 in the afternoon, or whatever.
That might not work too much. Like me and my wife always talk about everything ad nauseum, and I don't think we would work that way. Our morning mom, you were saying something.
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot that, but oh no, I remember now. I was saying, I'll get back to that in a second. I think that your one person does this line of work, the other person does this line of work, or switching off jobs is better than let's just, after 3 o'clock, because then you still have that. Well, I worked for you in the back of your mind. But if you're both trading off, there's equal footing there. And,
Right.
and it can be kind of a game where you're nice to each other, treat each other nice while you're the boss, because pretty soon you won't be.
Right. Well, we took this, when we bought our orchard on the Mexican border, we bought a 3-acre little house, funky little house that wasn't quite funky enough, and a 3-acre orchard that we were going to definitely change over to organic. It was avocados and citrus and bananas. And one of the first decisions we made together was I could do anything I wanted to the house, and Phil could do anything he wanted to the yard. We would still come together and discuss our ideas, but we still had a division of hierarchies.
Sure.
Right. I think that works really well. And I like the fact that you have not only a friend, a lover, but you also have a partner. I think originally marriages were people came together for love, but they also came together to almost as a business relationship. And it was minding the finances and the land and the what the family would be, the business of the family.
Yeah.
And I think you found that with you and Phil. You have the business of your family, which is each other, and everybody that works for you now.
Yeah. It's interesting. We haven't brought any children into the world, but we have mentored hundreds of kids. I have been the summer job lady in New York for 22 years, and I hire a lot of people for their first jobs. Phil loves to teach people construction skills, partially because he says, hey, everybody's going to live in a house at some point. They should know how it went together so that they can fix it when it starts to fall apart.
No kidding. I never had that.
Yep.
And he's also really, he was born to be an educator. That's kind of how he moves through the world.
That's really cool. He can come stay with me for a while this year.
One of my biggest joys that I had, it was probably early in January. I was in the house. I just got into the house in Arizona that I stay in, and both showers had this leaky faucet thing that you could never get the shower to be fully, blowing the water on you. It's always leaking down below, and pretty substantial. It was really annoying. And a buddy of mine's like, well, I do plumbing. I could fix it for you. I was like, oh, okay. He goes, or I could watch you do it and tell you how to do it. And I was like, let's do that. And we first did the shower that I use. So, we could, if we messed up anything, it would be all right. It was so easy. When I had somebody showing me what to do, it was like, people are paid a lot of money for this, and this is brilliant engineering mechanics. It's simple. So we went ahead and did the other shower as well, and I had such a feeling of accomplishment, and I definitely earned my man card that day, and now I kept the plumbing tools that I bought in the hopes that one day when I do it again, I'll have to call my friend and go, okay, how do I do this again? But it was fun. I really liked it.
Yeah.
And if you're still doing the Georgia Ren Fest, Rhonni, in 8 years, you can put my kids to work for you.
There you go.
I could not think of a better teacher, and they would love it. They love the Ren Fest. And if I raise them the way I'm intending to raise them, they're going to love feeding people, making people happy. So that's what we're working on. If you would like to call in and ask a question, we're kind of just all over the spot of what goes behind what you do, Ronnie's yet another example of doing chasing and catching your dreams. And in this case, it's very interesting. You didn't have a dream per se, like mine is to be a publisher, be a producer, and to be a radio host. It's very specific. Yours wasn't specific. Yours was, I want to make people happy, and I know I'm good at this. If you have questions for her to get a different set of advice that I could even give, or more than I could give, 813-413-7133. And, of course, if you're in Georgia, come find out what days she'll be here. You should definitely come and meet her at the Georgia Ren Fest. And if you're in New York and whatever, but I bet you have a website out there somewhere that tells where you are in the world.
My Rhonnirocks.com blog, I intend for it to. What happens mostly is I get someplace and then I post about being there. I rarely post and say, I'm going to this place. I say, oh, now I'm in New York. Here's the flowers that are in bloom, and here's what's at the farmer's market.
It's still an indication. Now, how has social media been treating you over the last year?
It's been good. The fact that I have a social media page that interacts with the social media pages of the festival that I'm at. So, say the Texas Renaissance Festival, if they post something, I interact with them from my fan page.
Cool.
And then they are able to refer back to my Rhonnirocks page as one of their vendors. Look at what our vendors are doing, kind of thing, without having to. It lets me keep it sort of separate from the page where I'm actually keeping track of what's going on with my family and my next door neighbors.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's
how do you spell that, Rhonnirocks, if they want to find you?
Okay, that's RHONNIROCKS. Again, that's RHONNIROCKS. I'm Rhonnirocks on Facebook, and I'm at Rhonnirocks.com.
And don't you have a Twitter?
I do have a Twitter. I'm just Rhonni on Twitter, RHONNI. And I love Twitter.
Now, have you gotten into the new phase that everybody seems to be getting into, including myself and our Morning Mon, which is the Instagrams?
I have not gotten into Instagram, but I have started playing with Pinterest.
Okay.
And I occasionally think I'm going to be into Google+, but I just go back to Twitter.
You're right. Google+ is still a geeks fest. But I looked at Pinterest, and it just reminded me of the early 90s and bulletin boards. And what have you found in your interactions with Pinterest?
Well, with Pinterest, for people in the recipe business, it's great. In that, if I find one recipe, say there's a food blog, and I'm only interested in one recipe on this food blog. I want her recipe for peanut butter chocolate chip quinoa cookies. I don't want to keep the link in a file. With Pinterest, I can pin a picture from that recipe, and when I click on the picture, I go back to her blog to that specific recipe.
Okay.
And I can visually reference where it is. Then, because I have comment space underneath that pinned picture on my own board, when I make that recipe and I alter 2 ingredients, I can make the notes right underneath it. And there hasn't really been a digital way to do that easily in regards to food blogs and collecting recipes. Decades, before, way back before the internet, that's how we traded recipes around. We had a little card that went in a box, and we wrote notes on the back of it, and we had the name of who gave us the recipe. That's how we interacted with recipes. And Pinterest allows us to do that. It allows us a digital way to do the same old-fashioned thing we used to do with recipes amongst ourselves. So for that, it's very good.
It sounded like somebody else. I went to a kid's birthday party, took my kids to one of their friends' birthday parties this past weekend, and the mother had not bought any of the cakes. She had made these great Mickey Mouse cupcakes and made cake pops that were dipped in this chocolate to keep it together, and all this amazing kid food. And my wife, of course, interested, was asking her about it, and she said she'd gone to Pinterest and basically typed in Disney parties, Disney birthday recipes or Disney birthday parties, something like that. And from Pinterest, she got a lot of things. So it definitely sounds like, to me, it's for lack of better terms, it's Wikipedia meets Facebook, where you socially share things back and forth and makes easy links to. It sounds like it's mostly articles or things that you write, like recipes. Is that a good take on it? Or?
Yes and no. It can be things you write, but there has to be a reference image in it that will get people back to it. So say you could do a graphic representation of the main awesome quote about that is going to be pulled from this article you write.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's say Morton writes an article, I help people be awesome. He can do just a graphic of words in like word art in Microsoft Word, and if he makes that a grabbable graphic, then somebody can put that on there. They can treat it just like a photograph or a GIF, and they can pin it to a board of quotes or inspiration or whatever, and then when they go click on that, they're going to go back to that whole article. So it's part of why more infographics are showing up. Gary Vaynerchuk is way into Pinterest. He pins a photograph of a label and writes in the description of the pin, he writes what he thinks about this wine. And now people can pull up Pinterest on their phone and look at that wine that Gary Vaynerchuk just posted while they're standing in the store trying to find it. Because, we find a wine bottle because it looks like the picture, not because we know exactly where it is in the store because they're alphabetical or something,
Right.
But
and oddly enough, Pinterest right now is the number 3 social media thingy.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And it
blew my mind to find out.
Yeah. We have Morton and I have a friend. I think you've met Kelly, Charles. But Kelly is she designs one-of-a-kind, true Victorian outfits, Victorian clothing for people, including like some big deal romance writers who had to have Victorian clothing so that they would know how it went on and off to write their books. Kelly's the person they hire for that. She uses it. She has hundreds of people that follow her very well curated board of Victorian clothes, and then this is Edwardian clothes, and then she also has boards for clients. And she says she can share that board with a client. They can pin everything that they like, and then she can look at everything they like and go, oh, you tend to like asymmetric things with lots of buttons at the neck. People can't even necessarily verbalize those things. But by getting all the imagery together, you can start to pick it out. Or somebody who knows that end of the business can pick it out.
Right. That definitely sounds it sounds very useful for people who can come up with graphical things. Like you said, Gary Vaynerchuk
Right.
does wine. Kelly does the dresses, the clothing. Artists, I can see even David, DCP is in the chat room tonight, and he did the beautiful morningworld.com and the new tortugatwins.com. And he could take pictures of his websites and even pin pictures of what he's done to a board, and then people could pay, oh, I like this about that. He could even pin different aspects of the pages. So I'm starting to get a picture of it. I'm just not exactly sure.
One of the things that was pointed out, I went to South by Southwest Interactive. I've gone twice now. And even though looking at the list of classes, I would say, no, there's nothing there that I need right now. The fact that I put myself in a town full of people that are working on the next thing has an energetic value that is an addition to any educational value. But one of the things they said about Pinterest is when you're looking at your own website, you need to make sure if somebody grabs a picture from your website that it brings them back to this website. It doesn't take them to your Flickr feed. You know,
Right.
so a lot of people host their pictures in Flickr and then use the URL to make the photo show up on their blog or their website. They're using Flickr as cloud hosting for their photographs.
Right.
You don't want somebody to just see your Flickr feed. You want them to go to your website and get the article. And they want to go to your website and get the article.
Sounds interesting. So how was you took your husband, you were telling me earlier, you took your husband to South by Southwest. And originally, I think, wasn't that just basically a big music show, and now it's much more than that?
Now it is. There is still a music festival going on, but now there are 3 major festivals that happen in Austin in March. The Interactive Festival and the Film Festival start up at the same time, and then they take over the whole town. The classes are happening on like 7 different campuses, which are the downtown hotels, and there are shuttles that run you around. They will be themed, like PR and marketing all kind of happens in one hotel, so that if that's really your focus, that's where you're going to stay. And if you're designing games, that all happened at the Screenburn Arcade, so you could stay in that building the whole time. Mine was kind of catching, and I was kind of all over the place, as was Phil, because we didn't know what we wanted to know until we got there and went, oh, you know, Phil's really into alternative energy, and what he sees himself doing is helping other street show operators get themselves into more of an alternative scene with how they power themselves. If you call a solar panel company because you want to design a system, there are no numbers for how many panels this freezer needs in a commercial use. They can tell you how many panels that freezer needs to be in somebody's garage holding the frozen blackberries and the extra beef,
Right.
but not if you're going to open it 700 times a day. They don't know. So there's this other level of math that Phil had to do this, and so he wants to help other people get this done.
That's beautiful.
So we were going to classes with, one of them was by people that had created software to sell to electric companies to help people get inspired to save energy. That panel was the guy that wrote the software and the psychologist who had done the studies that it was based on. And they said people are 80% more likely to take action to keep from wasting something that they've paid for than they are to take action to keep from having to pay for something. Does that make sense? I'm going to say it again. They're more likely to try to get back when they said you wasted 25% of your electricity and you paid for that, than being told you could save 25% on your electric bill.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And then using the understandings of how people are motivated by group support, there's software which these electric companies put their people, everybody in the electric company has the opportunity to join this social network of energy users in that company. And they can look at their usage through the day. It tracks up and down, and they can say, oh, I'm going to go change all the light bulbs I have in my house and see how that changes how much electricity I use.
Yeah, it kind of works that way.
I'm going to put a timer on my water heater so it doesn't run all night. It only comes on at 4 o'clock so I can have a shower when I come home at 5:30. And then they had forums where these people would share what worked for them or what didn't work for them. And they had the option of making their graph visible to the other members of the forum or not, and being able to congratulate each other when they were changing their numbers. And
yeah,
they said it's been huge amounts. And it just doesn't sound like it's that real. But then they tell you this is 2 coal plants that don't have to be built. So the energy company that would have had to come up with tens of millions of dollars, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars, to build their next plant in order to supply the future use of this growing city, now doesn't have to because they're training the city to use less electricity. Now, truthfully, am I going to use any of that information? No, but I'm totally inspired by the fact that I went there to see it. And those people, there's people in that room. It is very much a networking opportunity. There are people in that room that wanted our card because they wanted to make sure that we brought our solar-powered chocolate shop to the art festivals that happened in their town.
Wow.
Because they wanted that kind of stuff to happen. So there's the interactive festival is really just, officially it's technology, but now it's really grown into social media and into PR because PR and social media are so tied now. One of the classes I went to was discoverability and the new book PR. Another class I went to was Star Trek and social media. It was great. Apparently there is a class at Syracuse University called Star Trek and the Information Age. And it's actually a class to inspire the science and technology students or people that are trying to make their decisions about where they want to go in science and technology. And the class was about how this guy has teaches his whole class using social media. The class, they have, go ahead. Have I just talked for a whole hour? Is that what happened? Is that what you're about to do?
Yeah, did the timer go off?
The timer, yes, the timer went off, and we're coming up on it. You might as well tell them where they can find us, unfortunately.
Well, Rhonni, real quick, flip yourself out.
Okay, I am Rhonnirocks. That is RHONNIROCKS. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at rhonnirocks.com. And you can find me holding court at the hair braiding shop at the Georgia Renaissance Festival. I will be at the Bear Crawling Meetup.
Yes, May 26th.
And you can find us every Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern Time at morningworld.com/NAS if you want to hear us live, or if you can find us on iTunes if you want to catch the podcast. We're also at theothersideoflive.com.
That's right.
Fabulous.
So check us back out here every Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Next week, more stuff with Armored Mon in the studio. Until then,
this is Armored Mon
and the McFall.
Hey, this is Rhonni. Be well.
So raise your
Ciao, dream catchers.
So raise your glass if you are
Oh, baby.
right ways all